And USA Today, Nancy Armour, who does a great job there, she wrote a column not only talking about, Pat Mahomes' greatness on the field as a quarterback, but talking a lot about, what he does in the community in Kansas City and Texas, where he's from, speaking out about social injustice as he did with many other NFL players at the start of the season. He was in that video and all that. And she is saying, and many other people, she quotes guys in the article who are saying that this guy will become the most influential athlete in all of sports. I'm going to say for this generation. I don't think they're saying historically, but in all of sports. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, again, I just think it's over the top, too hard to tell. I don't have that sense for him. I mean, I'm not in Kansas City, so I don't know, and I'm sure he does a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, right.
But he doesn't stand out to me as somebody who I've listened to and went, oh, wow, like this guy is so clued in, so smart, so, well-spoken about the issues. I don't have any of those sound bites in my head to feel that way about him. I'm sure everybody loves him and thinks he's a great guy. I'm not doubting that at all. Even those State Farm commercials. I don't think he's that
good,
glib, but he's okay. But he's not that glib in them. I don't think he is.
I mean, the commercials themselves are good. It's not that he's
right.
Remember, Blake Griffin was really good in those.
Right. Some people have that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, he's fine. It's not a bad commercial or anything, but
he doesn't make the commercial with his personality.
Nah, I don't think he has that personality like that. And it doesn't mean that people won't look to him because of, his stature and sports and whatnot and all that. I get all that. I'm just not there. And I don't know. Maybe you know him better, and maybe you've dug a little deeper. But from the surface and the stuff that I've seen, I don't know how that could be made already, thinking that, because I just haven't seen it. Even Chris, let's be honest. He made the video, but I remember writing a column after Black Lives Matter because those guys didn't speak out initially. And then it was a column about, where are the black quarterbacks? And then a couple days later, they came out together. So it wasn't like he was Front Street. So that's just me.
Yeah, I think, who is the most influential athlete of this generation? I think it's LeBron James. I think you would agree. Would you? Tom Brady obviously has been great, but he doesn't have the off-field, off-court significance.
Tom Brady actually was quoted
James
as saying he didn't know what was going on with what Kaepernick was doing, if you remember that. I mean, that's all you need to know. So Tom Brady can't be in that conversation.
Yeah, he's nowhere near LeBron off the court, off the field. So we're talking about, can Pat Mahomes be as or more influential than a LeBron James? And here's what I'll say to that, Rob. I think Pat Mahomes will be a better player in his sport than LeBron James is in basketball. Now, that's a large statement because LeBron, many people think he's the GOAT. You and I have him second, to Michael Jordan. So I'm saying a mouthful. But I do think that Pat Mahomes, I'm not guaranteeing it or anything like that, but I think he can become the GOAT. I think I don't know if he'll win 6 or 7 like Brady may, but I think he can win 5, and that's huge because that is enough if his record is really strong. If it's 5-1 or something like that, and he's got these huge individual numbers where he could be viewed as the GOAT. So I think he'll be better in his sport, more dominant, if you will, than LeBron is in his. But I don't think he can match LeBron off the field. I for many reasons. LeBron, here's one. Mahomes does a lot in Kansas City and Texas. He's got a lot of programs, but we don't hear about him. For the most part, you don't hear about him. And I'm not saying LeBron is blowing the trumpet. Somebody's blowing the trumpet, though. Because every time LeBron does something, we hear about it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if he's just that stature of athlete at this point. Maybe it's the nature of basketball where The stars are more recognizable and everybody's more into their business and so on and so forth. But we know all the things LeBron has done and doing. And you don't hear as much. And I'm not saying Mahomes is doing as significant of things yet as LeBron has done. But I'm just saying you don't hear all the, ton about the things he's doing. So I think that's one factor, where we won't know. We may not know as much about the things Mahomes is doing. I think the other thing, Rob, is LeBron's background. LeBron has got the rags to riches story that everybody loves. LeBron, grew up without knowing his father. Mom was 16 when he was born. Raised in poverty. Missed almost the entire school year as a fourth grader. Like people think of him as this polished, almost suburban guy now because he's so well spoken and, he's done so much, so many great things. But no, he came from a background that is rougher than most athletes. Not all, but most athletes come from.
Mahomes' dad pitched in the major leagues. He didn't grow up in a tough situation. Period.
No, exactly. He grew up suburban, which is fine. I grew up suburban.
Nobody's
killing it.
Him, right?
Right. But LeBron's kids will grow up suburban. But to your point, he doesn't have that rags to riches tale that everybody,
and maybe he can't even relate totally. To be honest, I mean, everybody doesn't grow up with a dad who pitched in the major leagues. That's just fact.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And, that all depends on his dad. Did his dad educate him? What's the rest of his dad's family like?
But I'm just saying.
But he may not, you don't know.
It's still different.
I don't get the impression that he can't relate, but obviously he didn't come from a hard knock life. And you know this too, Rob. LeBron, and this happens a lot of times when you grow up in the hood, sometimes brothers feel that responsibility to bring their boys along. And he has done that, to the nth degree. He has turned his boys into moguls. There was just a story on Rich Paul today and yesterday in Bloomberg about how he's changing the face of sports. Rich Paul is probably the most influential, or certainly one of the most influential agents in basketball, and now is delving into other sports. Maverick Carter is an entertainment mogul, and that's because LeBron brought them along and helped get them set up and gave them opportunities, and they've capitalized on it to their credit. Mahomes isn't doing. You don't grow up thinking about that. I grew up, like I said, in the suburbs. If I had become some great athlete, I wasn't thinking I got to bring my boys along. They were fine. They came from good families and they were getting their own jobs and all that. So I think all of that leads to Mahomes off the field not being able to equal or be more influential than LeBron James. And that's not a knock on him. But I just think that those are big factors that I don't know that he or anyone in his situation could overcome.
Yeah, I just think, you talk to some people, they say nice stuff. You put it out there, and he's done plenty of local work and things in the community. So it's not a knock on him. I just think that that's too big of a net to throw out there. Michael Jordan was a great player. We all know he just wasn't interested in that.
Right.
It just didn't fit with what he was doing, and he could have made some other strides. And I still think that's why, as great as Michael Jordan was, and as much as he's done, with his money, post-playing career, and all the stuff he has, he's still not on that level. Like people don't have that feel for Michael because he never really spoke up when he was at his height. Do you know what I mean? Like,
not as far as social justice,
right? Like you don't have that connection with him, and that's all. Something.
And to be honest, Rob, this very few athletes in the 70s and 80s and 90s Ali you had in the 70s, obviously, but outside it, you know what I mean? Like
No,
Jim Brown retired in the 60s.
But Michael was
Bill Russell.
bulletproof, and he didn't do it. And
Right.
I don't think people wanted him to be on his soapbox on every issue, but like there were that Jesse Helms in the Senate race, in North Carolina at that time.
yeah.
Michael was very, and he didn't even want to be involved at all. And I don't think that would be the case. Like now, I bet you if Mike was playing now, there was no way he would not have been involved. You know what I mean? The pressure would have been on.
I think he'd be, and I also think now. Obviously, you had Rodney King in 92, the early 90s when that happened, but you didn't see racism. Obviously, was wildly prevalent in the 80s. The homicide rate. That's when the crack cocaine was in the inner cities and brothers were going to jail left and right. Homicide rate was higher than it is now. So you had many things going on in the black community, but you weren't seeing, because of the camera phones, you don't even have to look for it now. It's all, you're seeing these brothers being shot by police, unarmed, everything's on, you're seeing it. So you can't get away from it. And
even though we did see Rodney King get beat like a
that's
dog
what I
on
brought
video.
Up Rodney King. Right.
Yeah. I mean, we saw it and they still were acquitted. I mean, that was
Right.
why they had riots in LA. Let's not.
Right. No, I brought that up before I started talking. I'm just saying that was one incident. Now you're seeing them every month or so. You're seeing a new incident and all that. You just saw the 9-year-old girl pepper sprayed by police, so I agree. I don't think Jordan would have been as quiet today. And to his credit, you're right. When you're hot, you should use that platform. I would like you to use that platform. Let's put it that way. But he is, he has become the first black majority owner in professional sports, which is big. Or at least in the NBA. He's the only one now in the NBA.
But wait a minute. But
Bob Johnson. Yeah,
Bob
he's
Johnson,
not the first.
he was the majority. Right.
Bob Johnson was the first. He's the second, but he's the only one left in the NBA
Right.
and in the three major sports right now. So that's something he obviously, is with the medical center in North Carolina.
He's done so much stuff.
Now
I mean, we already get all that.
He's doing
but I'm
a
just
lot
saying,
now,
right.
but he didn't do it when he was the superstar player.
Exactly.
Like LeBron is. So, yeah, those are our thoughts. I mean, look, we'll see what Mahomes does. I think he'll do great things, Rob, off the field and certainly on the field, but I don't know that he can become more influential than a LeBron James.
I got it. Nancy had to get a column out. I get it. And she got people to say some nice stuff.
You know how it was back,
Right. I get it.
We
mean,
were writing.
And you want to write
still.
right, and you want to write some other stuff. You know what I mean? That's not.
You don't want to
on
write the same thing everybody else is
writing. So you look for it. You got some people to chime in on it, but I don't know how you could project that yet. That's all.
Will Pat Mahomes be the most influential athlete of this generation? And I even threw this out, Rob. I said I think he'd be a better, football player, more dominant football player than LeBron is basketball player. So what are your thoughts on either of those things? 877-99 on Fox. Your turn to weigh in.
Patrick in Baltimore, you're on the Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio. What's up, Patrick?
Hey, guys. How you all doing this evening?
Good, brother. How are you?
Doing fine. I love your show. Love you guys. Thank you for letting me come on. Let me just say, I guess in the words of Robert Parker, no way, no how. If we say that LeBron and Pat Mahomes speak to the same generation, there's just no way that he's going to be more influential than LeBron James. You guys said that he doesn't have, well, to me, LeBron James has more of the spark, more of the desire, more of the want to particularly when you talk about off-the-field issues.
Right.
He has the creativity. He has the vision for it. You see, he's putting up schools. He's putting up, charities. I mean,
Patrick, the other part too is, and this is not a knock on Pat Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
LeBron has more street cred.
Yeah,
he just does.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Yeah, that's my take, guys. Thank y'all.
No doubt. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Sounds good.
Max in Georgia, you're on the Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio. What's up, Max?
Hey, guys. Good to talk to you. Appreciate it. For me, I mean, this is a tough subject because I don't want to go too hard on this guy, but I got to push back. I like in these situations to be anonymous. I know some guys need credit for doing things and this and that, but anonymous is so strong in these situations. You're talking about charitability, doing the right things. There's nothing wrong with being anonymous and not having the credit. Having said that, that kind of ties into the whole LeBron narrative. It's all about LeBron, both on the court and off the court. You know, when it comes to the school that everybody talks about, from my understanding at least, he has helped and charitable about 25%. The rest of the 75% was taxpayers and district money raising. He helps operate it, I guess, about $2 million a year, but that's about a quarter of the annual cost to run that school. So I get tired of the whole thing about him getting all the credit, and it's not just him. Having said that, too, he spends $1 million a year on his body, right? Is he spending $3 to $5 million a year on PR? Because this guy gets all the PR. I just wanted to say that.
Chris said that.
I
Chris mentioned it that his there's no doubt about it. His people behind him, you know what LeBron is doing. That's just fact.
Jalen Rose
on the payroll.
Jalen Rose started a school.
Right,
This
is not unique.
David
right.
Robinson. It's unique in that it's not.
No, but I'm saying
totally,
that it's been
not
done
the first.
before.
Right.
Right.
It has definitely been done, but obviously LeBron is just a much bigger, superstar than anyone else. Everybody but Jordan probably, as far as in the NBA. Magic was huge, but it just wasn't as much coverage back then. Everything LeBron does gets covered, good, bad, basketball, off the court. But here's what I would say this to Max, and you know this, Rob. LeBron, maybe he's only giving 25% of the total cost of that school. But if you've got the juice, if you got the power to get, use your influence to create a very good and unique type of school for people that need it, then you don't have to spend all your money. It's about using your influence too. And so I don't think LeBron should be criticized because he's not paying every last dime of what that school does. That school is very unique. That school's meeting a lot of needs for kids that come from backgrounds that are challenging and unstable. And so I think him using his influence to get, that type of school built, that's a great thing.
You can't knock trying to help the community and people, so I'm not going to do that. But I understand Max's point. Max's point is that most people really don't know the nuts and bolts, Chris. And they think it's LeBron funding the entire school and sending everybody to college and all that. So I think that's the narrative sometimes that people hear. And it's not totally that, but I'm not going to knock a guy for helping. No matter how much he puts in, it's better than nothing. So I'm with that. Andre in Massachusetts, you're on the Odd Couple Fox Sports Radio. What's up?
What's going on,
guys? Thanks for taking my call, guys.
Yeah, indeed. Thanks for taking the call. Max does make a good point in terms of, when celebrities give, and being in the spotlight is about the spotlight or is about the giving, that giving done in secret a lot of times can outweigh. But don't necessarily think these celebrities aren't giving in secret. We mentioned Michael Jordan.
Are. Yep, plenty are.
Right.
And how, he's been more vocal, donating $100 million over the next 10 years to social justice causes. But sometimes people do things quietly, and are still for the cause. To the original point, I think Patrick Mahomes I put Patrick Mahomes and LeBron James in two different categories. LeBron's in year 18, Mahomes is in year 3. So I think he has the potential to continue what he's done. And Pat Mahomes, listen, a lot of the reason the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl is because he took less money so that they could pay for other positions so they could form a team. I think he has an egalitarian spirit about him, and that he will continue to do things for social justice. In conclusion, we can't not appreciate what LeBron has done in terms of the forcefulness. Chris, you mentioned the 80s, the Rockefeller laws, and what was going on in the community that's just now today being remedied. People could have stepped up more, so we can't not appreciate what LeBron is doing and the impact that it's having in places like Georgia, using arenas for voting places. It can't be understated.
Thank you,
LeBron Rob, he may have had a huge impact on this last election. I think he did. With all that he did for voting, pushing the vote,
Yeah, I don't know how you measure it, but absolutely he was out there. Jax in Kansas City, we got about a minute. What you got?
I tell you what, man. What's up, brothers? my boy Ice Cube said, being an activist out in these streets ain't no joke, man. So however you do it, Michael Jordan's influence as the only majority owner of a team in the three sports is huge. LeBron's influence in terms of building schools and doing what he's doing is huge. I know when Pat Mahomes said Black Lives Matter, the very next day, Roger Goodell came out like he was on a hostage video and said the same thing. So,
No,
hey, man,
right.
whatever any of these guys can do to be a good influence and better the world, we just get behind them, man. We don't got to, pit one against the other. It's all good.
That's a great call, Rob, because we do. I mean, look, people going to do it different ways, and you need people to do it different ways. You need some people to do it in corporate America. You need some people to do it quietly, but they're donating big-time money to the right causes. You need people to voice their opinion and sound the alarm. You need all of that stuff. It doesn't have to be, you got to be like Malcolm X. You got to be like or Martin Luther King. Both of them were necessary, and that is a great call, and I agree wholeheartedly.
Or like
with what the
Jay-Z
brother
being at the
said.
table and seeing the way that things change for black coaches in the NFL.
Well, I mean, he can't hire black coaches, but I'm saying I have heard that he is getting some things. There's that his voice has been heard in the NFL. I don't know how greatly, but he ain't gonna be able to go in there and tell owners who they got to hire. But